Say good morning to Sam Austin. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Rick. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thank you for joining us here today. Now, you write this blog for Spacing Atlantic, is it?
Yes. It's Spacing is it's a small magazine. They come out. They have a couple of publications through the year. I believe it's 4, but they also operate a network of blogs across the country, and it all delves with urban planning and urban issues. And so there's a very active little Atlantic chapter that I write for. It's kind of nice because you're relieved of the pressure of having to fill something every week. You can kind of pop in and out as something hits you.
Well, and McNab's Island has hit you in your most recent column. Have you ever been to McNab's, by the way?
It's funny. I was out there, of course, with the Halifax Diverse. It's a project of the Sierra Club and Waterfront Development. They organized an outing there 2 weeks ago, and a bunch of us got to go out to the island. And I had last been when I was in grade 4 in elementary school back in the 80s. So it was wonderful to go back there and kind of see it again from fresh eyes and a different perspective, obviously, from my 4-year-old or grade 4 self.
But I have to admit that I've been here since the mid to late 70s, and I've never been to McNab's.
It's a beautiful place. I was out there. It's a Saturday. You've got the sandy beach that is practically empty there off Maugers Beach. You've got the lighthouse. You've got all this woodland and hiking trails through it. 2 old Victorian houses that are still there and being kept up quite well. You've got a cemetery. You've got the 2 forts and these absolute stunning vistas across to Halifax. And, it's I was looking at the park management plan that the province has, and they'd pegged the visitors at 20,000, and the park management plan is several years old now. But Halifax Magazine had actually done a story on it, and they had the visitors at 10,000, which it sounds like a lot, but when you put that in perspective of Point Pleasant Park, just across the water, sees about almost 2,000 people a day. So Point Pleasant, in the course of a week and a half, 2 weeks, sees as many people as McNab's, right across the water from it, sees all year long, right? It's really underused.
The reason, though, perhaps, again, obviously why Point Pleasant, it's obviously more accessible.
Exactly.
Yeah. McNab's, you need to take a boat.
Exactly.
And the ferry, and that's one of the points you raise here. Why not, and there's a photo that accompanied your blog, picnickers on boarding the ferry at McNab's Island in 1885. There was one time a regular ferry run between McNab's and the mainland.
Yes, McNab's has a really interesting history in our city. It's almost as soon as Halifax was founded, it became this place where people would take the boat out because in those days the boat was kind of the car of the day. Everybody had a boat. So it was not a problem for people to take their own boat out there and picnic on the island. So it became a popular picnic place. And as time went by, it grew from that. And about 1844, a Halifax Steamship Company, they open up a ferry. And it's the ferry boat. The picture in the blog is the Micmac. And it starts service over to the island as well as to other destinations in the harbor. And it enabled the island to really, over 30 years, to become this high point of Victorian culture in the city. That's where people would go for an outing. There you had fairgrounds develop out there. All that kind of came in the 1840s because you had the access to it, right? And the island kind of went out of favor in the 20s with World War I, the Halifax explosion, and just we all bought cars, people stopped having their own boats, so things kind of changed pretty dramatically. And so in time, it's been forgotten in terms of this central role that it used to play.
There is a boat service to the island, but you have to make prior arrangements.
Exactly. The charters, they do a great job. The people who took us over, they were wonderful to deal with. It was pleasant to ride. If in the absence of a full ferry, go explore. The charters are definitely worth it.
What's the cost, by the way, of a charter?
I think it's $20 a person, right? So it's reasonable. But in terms of that mass appeal, you're never going to get there completely with a charter because it's not a predictable schedule. You have to call ahead. You have to book. $20 if you're going as a family, that can add up pretty quick.
Yeah.
It can't fulfill the same function as a regular scheduled ferry that you can plan the day on your own. I mean, just imagine if you were down at the Seaport Market or the Alderney Market in Dartmouth, and you were there, you had some lunch, it was like, you know what, I'm going to pop out to the island for an hour or two, go for a walk, right? And that's the kind of thing you can't do with charter. Not really well. It's a bit of a barrier that you can do if we had an actual fully scheduled regular ferry that was predictable and frequent and cost affordable.
Are you aware of any private interest in this, or perhaps city interest? Is anybody looking at this possibility?
It's kind of this perennial idea. It gets kicked around every now and then. There's murmurings, right, in the private sector. But if you look, I looked at 3 cities. Boston Harbor, where they have several islands. One actually is called George's Island, and it's got a big fort on it.
And
doesn't sound familiar at all.
Not to interrupt, but Boston Harbor is a busy harbor, and our harbor is peace and quiet and tranquility compared to that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's the same with San Francisco, where you've got Angel Island, which is another island that has nothing on it except for it's a park, and you have a ferry service that goes out there.
And a regular ferry service.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the Toronto Islands being another one, right? So you have these examples of major parks in these big cities that are right off the downtowns that are serviced by ferry. And even in the large cities, in every one of them, there's a public element to it. It's not all private operators that are doing this. You have some private sightseeing, but you have a bedrock service that's provided by the public transit agencies in the various cities.
Yeah, for example, water taxis. We don't have any here yet in Boston. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
It's anyway.
Our harbor, you're right, is very underused for what we have.
But what are you suggesting here in regards to me? Do you want to see McNab's go back to the day when perhaps the Bill Lynch shows were playing there and it became a real beehive of activity, or do we keep it the way it is sort of now, again, an escape from the city, a place to get away and have a look at Mother Nature, or something in between? What are your thoughts here?
I think we could do something in between, honestly. I don't think we're ever going to go back to the point that we're going to build this big amusement park out there, and I don't think that's what anyone wants. For that kind of thing, we have different outlets now that we didn't have back in the 1880s, 1890s. You've got Exhibition Park and these kind of venues. I don't think we're going back to there. But I think we could do there is a need for space for hiking, space to go to the beach, these kind of recreational activities that are more connected with nature. I think you do have that potential on the island. We do have the Victorian houses out there. You could do something. You could do something interesting with one of them. Right now, the province maintains them, but there's no use. They're boarded up, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. One of them is the caretaker lives in it, and the other 2 are just. They're sealed off, right?
So there's still a caretaker.
There is a caretaker out there. I don't know if he's out there for the winter, but someone mows the trails. And so one of the houses, my understanding, he lives in one. The other 2 are empty. And so you've got 2 buildings out there. I mean, one could be a museum. It could be a summer arts school. Yeah. I mean, there's any number of creative uses that could come forward that you could put in those homes. I don't think we should go back to a giant fairground, but certainly I think there's a need for that recreational space, for a place to go to the beach, place to go hiking in the woods, place just to get away from it. And I think a ferry out there, it's a large island. I think we could bring more people out there without losing some of that tranquility that's currently there.
You mentioned, Sam, that the ferries that we have here now, including the new ferry, the Stanix, the Christopher Stanix, they can dock at McNab's.
I'm not sure if they can dock at McNab's without some upgrades to the wharf out there. This is just coming from Twitter there, where Friends of McNab's was referencing the new ferry, the Christopher Stanix, as being able to go to the island. But I think, to me, it's an absolute shame that the Friends of McNab's, and I mean, we should all be thankful to them for all the work they've done, but that they've had to really step up and do all this kind of work over there on the park, because to me this is a responsibility of all 3 levels of government. You've got federal parks, federal National Historic Site out there. It's a provincial park, and HRM, although we don't have any land holdings there, has general responsibility for transportation and recreation in this city. And I think when it comes to the ferries, the city already has the boats. On the weekends, all but one are just docked. Let's put them to use. Let's have a weekend service, maybe a holiday service out there for 4 months of the year during the peak summer season. You could still even have that really isolated feeling during the week if you wanted to charter your own boat out there and have the island to yourself like it is now. But maybe then a couple more people in the city would get to experience it on the weekends. And we'd be using the resources we already have.
Again, great idea.
Yeah.
David Hensby, the city councilor, tweets to say McNab's Island would be a great place for a golf course, he says. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm not sure that I could agree with Councillor Headsby on this one.
Well, at least it's an idea. I mean, people are thinking about.
Yes.
Things, so. But McNab's is as she pointed out, it's a real jewel right smack dab in the within spitting distance of the city here. It is underutilized, and no question, if we provided a better service, a ferry service, that more people will get out there and use it. No question. No question. Listen, Sam, a very interesting article. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, and hopefully we've got people discussing or prompting some discussion about the future of McNab's and how we can make better use of the island.
Well, with the nice weather we have, maybe if it holds for the weekend, maybe some of your listeners can pop out and take a look for themselves.
Including myself.
Yeah.
Indeed. Thank you, Sam Austin.
Thank you.
Thanks for dropping by.